What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up on the program, I put together my perfect Eagles free agency plan. What Philadelphia and Howie Roseman can do to ace the free agency period. Speaking of that, don't miss our coverage. I'm going to be live all throughout next week alongside producer Chip right here on the channel. Anytime the Eagles make a move, even when they lose a player, we'll be breaking it down right here on the show. So hit that subscribe button, but also hit that bell icon, turn on your notifications. Therefore, when we do go live or when I publish a video, you will get that push notification. Let's begin by taking a look at the Eagles offseason profile here. Philadelphia currently has $12.5 million in cap space. That is 16th among the 32 teams in the National Football League. So as compared to years prior, when the Eagles have had a lot more cap space, this year they're a little bit tighter on the books. Draft-wise, I like where Philadelphia is, and this is because on draft weekend, Howie Roseman is always wheeling and dealing, compiling picks. The Eagles are first on the clock with the 23rd overall selection in the first round. They have 8 picks in the 2026 draft, all of them inside the first 5 rounds. As far as the Eagles' biggest needs on the roster, this offseason, I think they need to tinker with and rebuild the offensive line. Tight end, depending on what happens with Dallas Goedert, even if the Eagles brought him back, I think that they should draft a young tight end to develop. Wide receiver, obviously we'll see what happens with A.J. Brown as well. And then on defense, cornerback, safety, you got to add edge rusher in there, but we're going to check that box off to begin my perfect free agency plan. I think it starts with re-signing pass rusher Jaelan Phillips. When Howie Roseman acquired him going into the NFL trade deadline, I really liked the move because you were bringing in Phillips, who has thrived before under Vic Fangio. After the acquisition of Phillips, and I liked what the Eagles had to give up for a really good player as well, he turned around this Eagles defense. Now, the defensive unit was really good prior to Jaelan Phillips getting traded to the Eagles, but he made them go from being a good defense to one of the top defenses and an elite defense in the NFL in 2025. The price tag is going to be interesting here. Jaelan Phillips is still a young player. He's had elite production. He plays a premium position. But Howie Roseman values the pass rusher spot because he looks at edge rusher as a premium position. And right now, the Eagles only have 2 edge rushers under contract for 2026. Nolan Smith, number 1, Jalen Hunt, number 2. So that's why I think signing Jaelan Phillips and then drafting another edge rusher could be really important. And if the price tag for Phillips is around somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million per year, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. You know he fits the scheme. He was very productive for you last year. He can get after the quarterback as a pass rusher, but he's also a really good run defender. He's a good fit in the locker room, and he's still a young player who gives you really good play for a pretty affordable number here. Now, if Jaelan Phillips does walk, if he signs elsewhere in free agency, the Eagles get a 3rd-round compensatory pick back for Jaelan Phillips. And this past year, he was one of the top pass rushers in the game. Overall PFF grade 74. That was 34th among 115 qualifying edge rushers. His pass rush grade, though, was 77.1, 20th in the NFL. Here's where he really made his cheddar. 57 hurries. That was 5th among all pass rushers, and he had 73 pressures, 9th. 5 sacks, but I kind of look at sacks sometimes like wins and losses for a pitcher. It doesn't tell the full story, right? You can have a 3 ERA, a sub-3 ERA. If you go 5-21, it doesn't mean that you're a bad pitcher. You could have 5 sacks. Some people might think you're an average pass rusher. But 73 hurries, top 10, or 73 pressures, top 10, 57 hurries. It's top 5. Really good numbers. And he shined with Philadelphia here. What he did in 8 games with the Eagles was tremendous. 8 games, he had 41 pressures. Think about how crazy that is and how consistently productive Jaelan Phillips was in an Eagles uniform. He also had 32 of those hurries with the Eagles in 8 games, with 2 sacks and 7 quarterback hits. I also really like the effort that he plays with. So that is step number 1 on my perfect free agency plan. Step number 2, I think this is a no-brainer. The Eagles going into the 2025 season had exercised the fifth-year option for Jordan Davis. This upcoming season, he's set to make $14 million guaranteed on that fifth-year option. Extend Jordan Davis. In 2025, he played at an all-pro level. The Eagles really value him as a player, of course, from the interior. He can stop the run. He can also rush the quarterback. But they really like Jordan Phillips as a leader, pillar, and team captain for this team off the field and in the locker room. And the Eagles do care about culture a lot. And Jordan Davis is a player who's really started to elevate in that type of vocal role. And you think about what the Eagles have experienced over the last few years. They lost Jason Kelce. They lost Fletcher Cox. Soon they're going to lose Lane Johnson. Brandon Graham retired and then came back. All those players have been captains for Philadelphia. Now it's time to usher in a new era of leadership, and Jordan Davis can be a foundational pillar of that. 4.5 sacks this past year. He had 9 TFLs, 25 pressures, 6 quarterback hits, and 6 passes defended. And it was a crime that he wasn't named an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler, because I thought he was one of the top interior defensive linemen in football. And sometimes his impact at 6'6", 330 goes far beyond the box score. Like with Jaelan Phillips, you have to pose this question. How much will Jordan Davis demand with a new contract extension? I don't think he's going to be close to these players when you look at the list of the highest paid defensive tackles per year across the NFL. He's not sniffing Chris Jones at 31.75. Milton Williams got 26, the former Eagle. Zach Allen's at 25.5. Nnamdi Matabuke is at 24.5. Aleem McNeil is at 24.25. And then you look at the likes of Derek Brown, Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, DeForest Buckner, and Daron Payne. They're ranging between $22.5 and $24 million. With Jordan Davis, he's not the player that Jalen Carter is. And we'll talk more about JC coming up here in a moment. And so because of that, I think the Eagles can lock up Jordan Davis on a deal between 13 and 16 to $17 million. Step number 3 on the perfect free agency plan, and I'll talk about why these extensions are important. Extend Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, when healthy, is one of the most disruptive players in football. And he isn't the vocal team leader and team captain that Jordan Davis is. And obviously, Jalen Carter is a little bit edgier. He's a little bit more intense. But sometimes you need dogs on your roster, especially along the defensive line. Jalen Carter is that. He puts fear into the opposition. He demands double teams. He opens up opportunities for other players. It's crazy how he doesn't get the whistle, because there are so many times in which the officials should be throwing flags because Jalen Carter is getting held, yet he still is able to make an impact. Does he need to get better against the run? Yes, he does. But I still think he's an effective run stopper from that interior defensive tackle spot, and he's really good at getting after the quarterback, even beating and defeating some of those double teams. 3 sacks in 11 games in 2025, the 5 TFLs, the 36 pressures were phenomenal in 11 games. He also had 12 quarterback hits, and him and Jordan Davis both combining for 6 passes defended, tied for second among all defensive tackles. He had to deal with those shoulder injuries starting in training camp that impacted his play. He's been working hard to put those issues behind him. And if he plays like he did in 2024 when he was an All-Pro, here's why it's important for Jalen Carter to get a contract extension. He will not get any cheaper. I don't think that he's going to overtake Chris Jones to become the highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history. But if Milton Williams got $26 million, Jalen Carter is a better player than Milton Williams. He's going to get more and demand more than Milton Williams at 26 in AAV. The Carter and Davis extensions for the Eagles would give the Birds some much-needed salary cap relief going into free agency. It would just free up some cash for Howie Roseman to spend on other players during the free agency period. So with that, it's natural that I pop up today's poll question. In Howie we trust. If you trust Howie Roseman to crush this offseason as the best GM in football, I want you to type Howie down in the comment section right now. More to get to for my perfect free agency plan, but I do want to show you these Eagles Now shirts over the years, a lot of you have been asking me, Chase, can you please design an Eagles Now shirt? I want to rep the birds and I want to support the show. Well, you can do that and you can look good in the process. And I want to be the channel at Chat Sports that sells the most channel shirts among all channels here at Chat Sports. Right now, we are top 5. I want to become top 3. So get your shirts right now, chatsports.com/Eagles Now. Chatsports.com/Eagles Now. There is a Kelly Green shirt available as well, and they're only $24.99. We move ahead with my perfect free agency plan. There are going to be tough decisions that Howie Roseman will have to make with some of the homegrown talented players that the Eagles have on their team right now who are going to become free agents once the new league year gets underway. I think it's smart. I think it's feasible. I think it's realistic that the Eagles let these 3 players go. Dallas Goedert, drafted in the second round in 2018. I think Nakobe Dean, there's a good chance he could follow Christian Parker and go to the Dallas Cowboys. He's only 25 years old, but what a pickup that was in the 3rd round, 83rd overall of the 2022 draft. And then what a story Reed Blankenship has become as a UDFA out of Middle Tennessee State who once suffered a career-threatening injury, and he's turned into one of the top safeties in football who has made big play after big play on the back end for the Eagles secondary. And in addressing these 3 players here, if you let Dallas Goedert go, this is a deep tight end class. You could go Kenyon Sadiq if he's on the board at 23. You could go Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt in the 2nd round if you want to go that route. But there are other players who I really like. Sam Roush out of Stanford is a freak. Oscar Delp out of Georgia, I think, will be a better pro than he's been a college player because he was on a loaded offense. The point here, you let Goddard go. You can get younger and cheaper at that position while making a move for another tight end, whether it be via trade or free agency, who is cheaper than what Dallas Goedert is going to get. It's always tough to let these players go. But that's the tough business side of the National Football League. At the safety position, were you watching the NFL Combine last weekend? This is a safety class that is impressive. And some of these safeties, with how they tested, what they put on tape, opened up a lot of eyeballs across the NFL, turned a lot of heads, and dropped a lot of jaws. You let Reed Blankenship walk, I think that is the most realistic of these 3 because he's made like $4 to $6 million total in his NFL career so far, something in that neighborhood, right? This is his opportunity to cash in as a former UDFA. And if he gets offered a huge payday, I know the Exciting Mikes is a great podcast. He should take that bag, and Cooper DeJean would tell him to take that money. And then with Nakobe Dean, what good organizations do, they always plan ahead. Howie Roseman had an idea. Jason Kelce was going to retire. What did he do? Drafted Cam Jurgens prior to Jason Kelce retiring. The Eagles knew that Fletcher Cox was getting to the end of the road. What did? They drafted Jordan Davis and then Jalen Carter. So with some of these players who have gotten a little bit older or players who Howie has envisioned leaving, the Eagles have done what good businesses do. They plan ahead. And the Eagles probably saw that Nakobe Dean, with the arrow pointing up on his trajectory, was going to be able to leave, cash in free agency. So what did the Eagles do at the end of the 1st round in the 2025 draft? They drafted Jaelan Campbell. Now, Jaelan Campbell right now is not the player Nakobe Dean is right now, but he has so much upside, so much ability, so much potential and talent. He could definitely become a better player than Nakobe Dean down the road, but you don't want to sit a second-year player who's a 1st-round pick who you now have under contract potentially for the next 4 years, especially if he's a good player. Get Jaelan Campbell on the field. And prior to Nakobe Dean getting more snaps with the Eagles once he got healthy, Jaelan Campbell had the 2nd highest coverage grade last year among all off-ball linebackers at 78. His overall grade was 75.9. Nakobe Dean is excellent against the run. Jaelan Campbell was good against the run. He can get better there. Sometimes he over-pursues and he's a little bit too aggressive. It doesn't have that great feel that Nakobe Dean possesses. But also keep in mind that when Jaelan Campbell was recruited to Alabama, he was recruited as a pass rusher, not an off-ball linebacker. Jaelan Campbell has freakish ability and talent. And even when he filled in for Nakobe Dean in that Bills game, He was making plays all over the yard. Lastly, with my perfect free agency plan, let's address some needs here on this Eagles roster. And if you're still watching this segment, give me a real one down in the comment section right now. If the Eagles let Dallas Goedert go because he's too expensive in free agency, how about a trade for Michael Mayer, who is still only 24 years old? I loved him coming out of Notre Dame. I think he's a fantastic player, but right now, he's behind Brock Bowers. You give up a mid-round pick for Michael Mayer, boom. You address the tight end spot by acquiring him, and then you draft the young tight end. Your tight end room with those two players might be better than what the Eagles had last year with Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra. As far as the offensive line, it's a huge need for the Eagles this offseason. I think the best way to address the offensive line is through the draft. Mekhi Becton's getting cut by the Los Angeles Chargers. A lot of chatter that the Eagles don't have interest in bringing him back, and they're not happy with how Mekhi Becton has kind of reverted to his old ways. And I don't know that Mekhi Becton fits this Sean Mannion offense. Plus, in free agency, especially at the offensive line spot, because they're hard players to find, a lot of these guys get overpaid for who they actually are. I would look at a veteran cornerback like Nahshon Wright. And if the price is right between $7 and $10 million for a guy who's long, lengthy, opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, very disruptive in forcing turnovers last year, I would like a player like that in this defense. And then you keep, obviously, Cooper DeJean inside in the slot. I would re-sign Brandon Graham in free agency. His ability to put pressure on the quarterback from the interior last year was impressive when Jalen Carter was out, but he was also good at defensive end. If the Eagles can't re-sign Jaelan Phillips, sign Trey Hendrickson. 17 and a half sacks in 2023 and in 2024. No player in the NFL had more. He's coming off a down year because he was injured with that core muscle injury, but I still think at 31, he's got some really good football ahead of him still. And because he had a down season in 2025 and was injured, you can get him at a pretty affordable price. If the Eagles strike out on Jaelan Phillips and Trey Hendrickson, a cheaper option than both those players could be Bradley Chubb, who played under Vic Fangio with the Denver Broncos and the Miami Dolphins, and this past year was really good. I'm going to go this route. The Eagles have a need at the safety position because I think Reed Blankenship gets it back. The Eagles should sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson as a versatile, cheap veteran safety alongside Andrew Makuba. I know that there's been some bad blood between CJ and the Eagles, but how about a reunion? How about bringing him back and bringing him in for the third time? I think he's changed a little bit. I think he's matured. I think he's realized that he's needed to make some changes. Ben Johnson loved him once the Bears picked him up off the scrap heap after he was let go from the Ravens practice squad, after he was let go by the Houston Texans. The Eagles need some dog on that back end. They need a vocal leader and a ball hawk. CJ Gardner-Johnson is that. The 2 years that he's been on this Eagles team, they've had tremendous defenses that have made it to the Super Bowl, and I would bring him back once again. It just makes a lot of sense. I think Howie Roseman should make an effort to re-sign punter Braden Mann. Last couple of years, he's been one of the better punters in the NFL, but if he's too expensive, I'm not overpaying for a punter. Sayonara, and let him walk. You can find a punter in free agency or as a UDFA. So grade my perfect free agency plan. A lot of steps there. A, B, C, D, or F, be honest with me and let me know.